Just when you thought Ant-Man couldn't get any smaller, he disappears with his whole family into the quantum realm. But this small world is home to a huge threat and a mechanical organism designed only for, you know what? Let's just get into it. For the first half of Quantumania, the villainous ruler Kang's name isn't actually spoken. Characters refer to him as the Conqueror or simply him. Janet offers frustratingly little explanation for the villain until the middle of the story because, well, the plot demands some intrigue, but we do finally get a full backstory an hour in. During Janet's many years spent stranded in the quantum realm, she came across a marooned Kang. He claimed that he was a scientist and that his ship had malfunctioned. Janet helped him repair it, only to discover his true identity, a violent tyrant who was exiled by his brethren to the one place he couldn't escape through time travel. She disabled his multiversal engine and fled, spending the ensuing years fighting him with the other denizens of the quantum realm. Since then, Kang has only wanted to escape his prison and return to take vengeance on his variants. But in the film's final act, we learn that he's not planning to go alone. After recapturing Janet, he reveals that he's planning to take the whole empire he built in the quantum realm with him, a massive futuristic sprawl that evokes his comic book headquarters Chronopolis. Whether he intends to take the Citadel directly to his variant's hiding place or somewhere else to continue building strength is unclear. Unfortunately for him, the time needed to transport such a massive fortress gives Scott and his allies time to strike. We learn from Janet that Kang has wiped out entire timelines in his quest for power, killing countless innocents in the process. Quantumania gives us a more tangible look at what life under his rule is like via the residents of the quantum realm.
Holy, that guy looks like broccoli.
When the crew is pulled in at the start of the film, they're separated, with Scott and Cassie landing in one place and Hope, Hank, and Janet in another. Scott and Cassie are quickly found by a group of freedom fighters led by the fierce Gentora, who explains that their home was decimated by Kang's army. So it makes sense that when Cassie rescues Gentora in the film's final act, they're quickly able to draw legions of rebels to their aid. All it takes is a corny speech from Cassie projected throughout the quantum realm and the knowledge that Kang's fortress is indeed penetrable. From there, the warriors just keep coming. Kang has a few villainous lines flexing over how many rebellions he's put down and how many Avengers he's killed in alternate timelines, but he ultimately fails to squash this one. The whole final battle is a massive computer-animated reminder of one of the film's core messages, that fighting for what's right, even against impossible odds, is worth it. Cassie emphasizes this point throughout the film, so it fits that she's the one to rally the rebels at the end. The combined bravery of the quantum realm rebels deals a heavy blow against Kang, but it's not enough to finish him. Late in the battle, the Conqueror enters the fray himself and begins wiping people clean out of existence with an impressive display of power. For a moment, it looks like he might be able to ward off the attackers single-handedly, but then Hank shows up with an army of ants. While these futuristic super ants are explained earlier on, they're still one of the more confusing parts of the movie. We first see them during the scene in which Cassie demonstrates her quantum realm satellite. For a moment, it looks like the two science fair projects might be connected, but that doesn't seem to be the case. The techno-ants are just the latest iteration of Hank's obsession with the little critters, one that has apparently resulted in them being smarter, good at computers. It's all a bit rushed.
Ants! Ants!
These ants are then pulled into the quantum realm with the others and encounter a temporal anomaly. This causes them to enter a separate timeline or perhaps location. It's not entirely clear. Either way, it's where they live and build a new society for 1,000 years. Eventually, they're able to work their way back to Hank and help him in his hour of need. Needless to say, there are a lot of questions here. Doesn't the quantum realm exist outside of time? Why didn't the human characters hit any temporal anomalies? Unfortunately, or perhaps for the better, the whole thing is played for comedic effect and dodges a lot of questions about how it all actually works. Quantumania is filled with kooky moments, but perhaps the film's most baffling bit is its handling of fan-favorite comic book baddie M.O.D.O.K, the mechanized organism designed only for killing. In a truly bizarre twist, Quantumania makes Darren Cross, the villain from the original Ant-Man, into M.O.D.O.K, which has never been the case in any comic. To be fair, it's hard to do M.O.D.O.K in a way that isn't totally ridiculous, but this still feels like a bridge too far. Through the final act, Darren has a character turn so sudden that it can hardly be called an arc, leading to him making a noble sacrifice. His death is played for laughs, with him demanding the title of Avenger right before his death. Thanks to Hank's sci-fi ant army, Kang is defeated, and Janet somehow manages to create a portal back to Earth. Presumably, she reverses the signal that first pulled them in during Act 1 and uses Kang's rebuilt multiverse engine to create a portal they can actually walk through. But it all happens so fast and the technology is so poorly explained that it's hard to say for sure.
It's really dangerous tech.
I know, it's dangerous.
Regardless, everyone besides Scott steps through before Kang returns, sparking another last-ditch duel between him and Ant-Man. Hope jumps back through to help Scott, and after slapping a smattering of pin particle discs on Kang's engine core, they appear to finish the villain off for good. It's not entirely clear what actually happens to the drive, however, or to Kang, who appears to be sucked into it as it overloads. The result is that the portal closes, and Scott and Hope look out over the liberated quantum realm that could now be their permanent home. They're not stranded for long, though, as Cassie does some quick keyboard smashing and reactivates her own device, opening the portal back up and reuniting the whole family. This is, again, not really explained. The multiverse core seems to have been destroyed, so how is Cassie able to reopen the portal? If that was possible without using the core, couldn't Kang have simply built a similar device to hers and gotten out of the quantum realm long ago? Stare too hard at the subatomic tech in this movie and it starts to fall apart a bit. The important thing is that Kang is defeated and the whole family gets home safe. Thanks to Scott and the gang, the quantum realm is finally freed from Kang's tyrannical grip, at least for the moment. The ambiguity of the Conqueror's fate leaves things a bit up in the air, but even if he managed to survive, he'd likely have little interest in returning to the site of such an embarrassing defeat. That raises the question, what's next for the realm? Jentorra tells Cassie that there was a whole society in her land that Kang destroyed. Presumably, it looked a lot like the places farther from Kang's reach that we see. Star Wars cantinas, bustling open markets, and weird living buildings erected in more rural areas. Perhaps now that Kang is gone, that lifestyle will return. Jentorra herself would make a great leader. Of course, this only accounts for one small corner of the quantum realm. The whole story of Quantumania seems to take place in a relatively small area, the equivalent of a small country which Kang has conquered. Janet describes the realm as being much bigger than that, saying that it has worlds within worlds. Could these other levels be explored in future films? Could the Freedom Fighters become allies to the Avengers in future MCU stories? Only time will tell. The first of two post-credit scenes in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania shows a meeting of the other Kang variants who banished the film's main villain to the quantum realm. In a coliseum positioned in what could be the MCU's actual Chronopolis, we see a huge number of Kangs, apparently all of them, assembling and cheering like crazed fanatics preparing for war. However, the main action of the scene takes place with just 3 variants. Though we don't get names in the scene, at least 2 of these Kangs should be recognizable to fans of the comics. The one driving the conversation, and who apparently called the gathering in the first place, wears regal robes and a tall hat that immediately evokes M.O.D.O.K, arguably the most powerful version of Kang. He's joined by another variant clad in the garb of an Egyptian pharaoh, invoking Kang's very first comic incarnation, Rama-Tut. The third variant of this core trio is much more sci-fi in style, almost appearing cybernetic. It's possible that his design is connected to Kang's Kid Immortus incarnation from the comics, but that would bring up some other big questions. All 3 of these comic book Kangs have diverse and specific roles in the Marvel story, so it should be interesting to see how they mesh in the MCU. Their mission, however, seems clear. The Avengers of the primary timeline have become too powerful, and the Kang Dynasty wants to wipe them out. In the mid-credits scene featuring the Council of Kangs, it's said that the variant Ant-Man fights in the quantum realm is dead. The Kang who resembles M.O.D.O.K claims this is true and rejects the other's doubts. You'd think that an assembled legion of such powerful beings would know definitively one way or the other, but it's hard to say for sure if the exiled Kang is actually gone for good. For starters, we don't really know what happened to him. When Scott douses the multiverse drive in pin particles, it appears to overload, and then Kang simply vanishes into it. It's possible that the energy emitted by the device vaporized him on the spot, or that he's pulled apart into a million different universes and rent asunder for all time. However, it's also possible that he's simply teleported somewhere else, somewhere he can wait in secret for the perfect moment to strike. The second post-credit scene in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania sets up Loki Season 2, bringing back the Asgardian Master of Mischief and his Time Variant's authority friend Mobius. The scene opens with a Kang variant giving an old-timey expo on his wacky time technology. We're then shown that Loki and Mobius are in the audience, and that they've traveled here specifically to find him. We don't know exactly when this moment occurs, in what timeline or with what version of Kang. However, it does reveal a few things. At the end of Loki Season 1, Mobius loses all memory of Loki, after Sylvie unleashes the multiverse and rewrites the time stream. When Loki returns to the TVA afterwards, it has a giant statue of Kang in the middle of it. The fact that Mobius has accompanied him on his mission to find Kang shows that Loki's re-established some trust. However, this scene presents as many questions as answers. Mobius seems to not know Kang here, with Loki reassuring him just how dangerous the villain is. But if there's a giant Kang statue in the TVA, wouldn't Mobius have some idea of the Conqueror's nature? Loki Season 2 will surely shed more light on this, and it can't come soon enough. Rumors have circulated for years that a Young Avengers project could be coming down the line in the MCU. With characters like Kate Bishop, America Chavez, and Joaquin Torres all entering the story in Phase 4, there are certainly enough heroes to fill out such a roster.
Wait, yo, you forgot the wings.
Keep 'em.
Speaking with Inverse prior to the release of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, producer Steven Broussard claimed that no such film is currently in the works, but he did acknowledge that passing the torch was a major theme of Phase 4. Cassie Lang would fit perfectly into a Young Avengers story. She and Kate are close friends in the comics and join the team together. Katherine Newton is great as Cassie in Quantumania, and it would be fun to see her become even more important as the franchise moves forward. Cassie Lang seems like a shoo-in for future MCU projects. For her dad, though, that's a little harder to predict. Paul Rudd has been playing Ant-Man for close to a decade now, and many of his peers have been phased out of the MCU. Prior to the Quantumania premiere, the actor told Insider, "I have no idea what my future in the MCU or in Marvel is at all. None of this is my call, so I try not to think about it too much." In the comics, Scott Lang meets somewhat of a gruesome end, which prompts Cassie to follow in his footsteps as an Avenger. He seems headed for a happier ending in the MCU, but Quantumania certainly doesn't rule out a return to action for the character. If the exiled Kang variant ends up being right, and Scott's actions in the quantum realm do endanger the Earth, he might feel an obligation to suit up once again. And he'd surely have something to say about it if his daughter starts fighting crime on the regular. Though much is still unknown, Quantumania does its job in planting the seeds of the Kang threat for Phase 5 and beyond. With the Council now tipped off to our heroes' growing fame and power, it's inevitable that they'll all cross paths soon. Loki Season 2 looks like the next logical place for the Kang storyline to continue, but fans can also look forward to at least one more big-screen feature for the villain down the line. The next proper Avengers movie, and the first since Endgame in 2019, is titled Avengers: The Kang Dynasty. The film is set to be released on May 2nd, 2025, preceding Avengers: Secret Wars by just a year. The last time two Avengers movies came out that close together, things turned out pretty well. And as the first of the two, the Kang Dynasty could venture into more emotional and mature narrative territory, similar to how Infinity War did. Given how spectacular Jonathan Majors is in Quantumania, that's an exciting prospect. It will also be interesting to see how closely the film adheres to the comic book storyline of the same title. Before then, Kang also has a good chance of appearing in the MCU's long-awaited Fantastic Four movie. He's a frequent enemy to the team in the comics and has some interesting connections to Reed Richards in particular, so it would make sense for him to play a substantial role. The Kang Dynasty is coming, and hopefully it'll be a blast to watch.